Happy Galentine's Day, everyone. Today, I am really thrilled to have Julie Roginsky with me. We're going to be waiting for Julie to come on. She'll be on shortly. And one of the things I was thinking about this week, and I really have the pleasure of, I see Julie has joined, and now I'm looking to see, and Carly has joined, and now I'm looking to see that we have some other people who have joined. I'm waiting for Julie's request to join, or I could send that out to her. And we're going to be diving into lots of women's issues today. It couldn't be a better day for that with Galentine's Day coming up. Galentine's Day, I think that for everyone that it can have different meanings, and we get to choose what this all looks like. Here I'm going to invite Julie. Let's see if we get on with that. That would be great. And here she is. Little side, Julie, I've got you sideways.
Oh, that's very strange. How's this?
That is, we are
Sort of
here.
lopsided.
Oh,
Okay, there we go.
okay, here we are. So welcome everyone. I'm going to introduce the show, myself, you, and then we're off and running. So welcome everyone to Disruptive Conversations, in which we deep dive. I'm so excited to have Julie on. I'm losing my words here. Okay, welcome everyone to Disruptive Conversations, in which we deep dive into the experiences that these women have needed to navigate and conquer in order to have created their personal and professional success. And these are women in the areas of entrepreneurs, influencers, thought leaders, political consultants, authors, educators, artists, and we go through this in all different ways that we can, because one of the things that we know is that positive change can happen at any point in time. And I'm Dr. Risa Reiger, clinical psychologist, and I'm an expert in change. And I'm here to tell you that it's never too late. The great news is that positive change can happen at any point in time. You're never too late. But in order to create change, we need to disrupt. We need to disrupt a thought, a feeling, a belief, behavior, a habit, in order to create our 10.0 lives. And here today to help us share her story, to help us be able to do the disrupting that we need to do, I'm delighted to have Julie Roginsky, who has been a long-standing, outspoken champion of women's rights and issues. One of the things that Julie is enormously proud of is that she championed the bipartisan Speak Out Act, which eradicates pre-dispute, non-disclosure agreements for sexual assault and harassment. In addition to that, she is the host of Retaliation, the podcast. She serves as an advisor to major corporations, startups, nonprofits, labor unions, and dozens of elected officials, including governors, senators, members of the House of Representatives, and state legislators. And Julie will be informing us of her latest endeavor when we get to the close of today's time. So Julie, welcome to Disruptive Conversations. I couldn't have asked for a better disruptor on Galentine's Day. And here we both are independently wearing our red.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and happy Galentine's Day to you and to everybody else who's watching. I've always said I'm very happily married, but I think Galentine's Day is actually more important than Valentine's Day, because your girlfriends are just the people who prop you up and keep you going. And so happy Galentine's Day to people who may be celebrating Valentine's Day, or may just be doing it by themselves, as I did for many years, as I'm sure you did for many years. And it's wonderful to be with you today of all days.
And just to add to what you just said, which is that for men to live longer, they need to be married. And for women to live longer, they need their girlfriends.
That's for sure.
So ladies, today is a time that you're not just taking out of your day, but you're adding to your lifespan by being here with us, in this hub together. So, Julie, of all the things that you've done, and we're going to get into that more, and which is a function of who you are. We do the things we do, but that is powered by who we are. So, what is it that you needed to disrupt inside of yourself to be able to have the personal and professional achievements you have at this point in time?
Wow, that's a great question. I was very lucky. I had a very sort of career that was a one-way career for a very long time. I was on the ascent from really the age of 22 till the age of about 44. And it was one of those careers where nothing was going to stop me. I decided I wanted to get into politics when I was younger, and I ended up working, for all the people in Capitol Hill I wanted to work for, all I helped elect countless politicians, and I was very, very happy to do that, and kind of felt like nothing could ever stop me. In fact, kind of always joke the whole Nike logo of just do it. I just did it because I wanted to do it, and I did. And then I decided I wanted to get into TV, and I had an agent. I was at CNBC, and I said to this agent, I'm really not qualified to sit here and talk about finance. I faked it pretty nicely, but I don't even balance my checkbook, and God forbid people actually trade stocks based on what I'm saying. I feel really guilty. So, but I am qualified to talk about politics because at that point I'd worked in it for decades. And I want to work at Fox News because that's the number one station in the nation. And I want to learn from Roger Ailes, who at the time was the head of Fox News and a genius, although he and I did not politically agree on much. He was a television genius. And my agent said something to me that I'll never forget. He said to me, "You are not tall, you are not blonde, and you're not a Republican. So there's no way Roger Ailes is ever going to hire you." And I said, "Okay, well, we'll see about that. You're right. I'm not tall, I'm not blonde, and I'm not a Republican, but we'll see about that." So I fired my agent and I got a meeting with Roger Ailes. I talked my way into it and he hired me. Um, and, at that point, you feel like there's nothing that anybody can do to stop you. You're just, and then once I got to Fox, I kind of kept climbing and climbing and climbing. I was not the permanent show host of a show called The Five, but one of the frequent co-hosts, and nothing was ever going to stop me until one day it did. And I can't unfortunately give you many details because I am bound by an NDA at Fox News, but suffice it to say that Gretchen Carlson, who some people may be familiar with, I know she did your show, in July of 2016 came forward in this very explosive way and filed a lawsuit against Roger Ailes for sexual harassment. And the only thing I could tell you that I thought about when I saw her story was privately to myself, I thought two things. One is, oh my God, this poor woman is going to be destroyed. They're going to absolutely decimate her. We'll never see her alive again. Not literally alive, but we'll never see her again. And the second was, okay, so it's not just me. And at that point, I realized that courage truly is contagious. And I want people who are listening to this to know that Gretchen was so incredible to be the first, but she gave so many other women the power to do the same. And about 10 months after she came forward, I filed a lawsuit against Fox. There's a lot of things that happened in between those two things that I only wish I could share with you, but unfortunately I can't. And I ultimately settled with Fox, which spelled the end of my career there, unfortunately. And what I did was I kind of looked around and said, okay, well, now I'm going to just get back to politics full time. It's not a big deal. It's not a problem. But, as much as you don't want these things to follow you, they end up following you. And what ended up happening was I was a consultant to the then candidate for governor of New Jersey, who now is Phil Murphy, the governor of New Jersey. And when I filed my lawsuit against Fox, I was sort of his senior advisor, really the only woman in the room where it happens. A bunch of the very young women on that campaign came to me and said to me, we didn't really think you were an ally, but now that you filed this lawsuit, it's in all the papers. We understand. Maybe you're somebody we could talk to. And they started telling me awful, awful, awful stories about what was going on in that campaign, including by the campaign manager, whom I actually had a hand in hiring. So I just was appalled. I ultimately went to Phil Murphy and told him about it, thinking he was going to have to do something about this. And for the first and only time in my life, I was fired within 48 hours for blowing the whistle. And when that happened, I was just floored. I just couldn't believe it. You come forward and you share some, not even on my own behalf, but on behalf of these other women, and the bottom line was he kind of stuck with the men and pushed me to the side and fired me. And as though that were not bad enough, immediately his lawyers started sending me legal notices saying, remember, you signed a very restrictive NDA when you went to work for him. You can't tell anybody about anything at any point whatsoever until death do us part of anything you witnessed on this campaign. None of it. And at that point, that all took place, my lawsuit with Fox and the whole incident with Phil Murphy, that was all in the span of about 3 months. And so I started 2017 as high as you can go. And by July 15th or so, everything was over. My career politically was really pretty much shunted to the side. My career in television was shunted to the side. And it was really just a fall that I think none of us can ever envision happening to us until it does. I mean, I just remember sitting around and thinking, oh my, like what the hell just happened? What is going on with my life right now? Like everything's falling apart. Every aspect of it is falling apart. And, at that point, I said to myself, the more they tried to shut me up with this NDA, which, by the way, it was so onerous that I could not even tell anybody I had an NDA, the more I said to myself, if this is happening to me, this must be happening to other women too. This can't just be me. And so I called Gretchen, who I knew from Fox, but we weren't particularly tight. And we got together and I said, you're working on stuff in Washington to change the law on forced arbitration, which was an issue that affected her, not me at Fox. I am so deeply committed to making sure that none of it is going to happen again. No, Phil Murphy's not Chris Murphy. Chris Murphy's the wonderful senator from Connecticut. Phil Murphy's the not so wonderful governor from New Jersey. He, just to clarify a question that somebody asked.
Mm-hmm.
And and so Gretchen and I did, we teamed up, we founded an organization called Lift Our Voices, which is a nonprofit. If we had known then what we know now, I don't think we ever would have had the guts to do it because we knew nothing about, again, talk about just going out there, kind of shooting first, asking questions later. But we figured it out. I mean, we really dedicated our lives since 2019. It's been, God, I mean, really, the end of 2019, so it's really been 5 years now, going on 6. And we have made change like I have never thought was possible. We passed 2 bipartisan laws in the most partisan times in our lives through Congress, signed by President Biden in 2022 to get rid of forced arbitration and pre-dispute NDAs for sexual misconduct. And in New Jersey, I made sure a law was passed, which is why I'm able to tell you the story of Phil Murphy now, that got rid of NDAs for all toxic workplace issues, including for being a witness to sexual harassment, and racial discrimination and age discrimination and so on and so forth. And that law became the impetus for laws in California and Washington state that are also doing the same. In those 3 states now, if you have an NDA, you're no longer bound by it for any kind of human rights violations. And we're moving on to New York and Connecticut now. So we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going until every single person has the ability to speak their truth on their terms without fear of being sued into oblivion, without fear of losing their jobs. And it's not just changing laws in the most partisan time in our life is really hard, but changing culture is harder. And that's what we're working on too, to make sure that women and men can come forward without fearing that they're going to be ostracized or lose their jobs, or in other ways be shunted to the side while perpetrators are allowed to stay. And that came about largely because I had this horrible setback about 8 years ago and decided to make lemonade out of lemons. So I urge everybody here, if they're listening, if something's really bad and you're sitting around saying, oh my God, what the hell just happened to my life? It gets better. Try to make lemonade out of lemons if you can.
I'm hearing more, Julie, than making lemonade out of lemons. I'm hearing about like having a grove of lemons
Oh, yeah.
and being planting a grove of lemons, taking those lemons, making beautiful lemon cake with lemon, delicious lemon icing on it, and really reworking and retooling that beyond lemonade.
Yeah. Look, it's something that when something really bad happens, I've always had this kind of, I don't know if it's naive or optimistic or whatever adjective we want to ascribe to it, thought really from the beginning that everything happens for a good reason. And everything happens for, and it took me many years to figure out what the destruction of these two career paths that I killed myself for literally decades, what the good reason for that was. And it was not until I will tell you the exact moment when it struck me. I was standing at the National Press Club in Washington giving a speech about what I was doing. And I didn't say it at the time in the course of my speech, but it occurred to me, this is what I was meant to do. This is it. You know, I was meant to be a mom to my son. And I was meant to do this, that this is the one thing aside from giving birth to my son that will have the greatest meaning in my life. Because I'll never be out of my well, hope springs eternal. Maybe one day Fox will release me and Gretchen and other women from our NDAs. We've asked, they've ignored us. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. And it's weird. There have been movies made about us. It's very weird to see somebody playing you in a movie and not being able to say whether it's accurate or not. There have been stories written about us. Everybody has the right to tell our stories except us. And that's very strange. But we made sure that nobody else is going to ever have to go through that again. And what else can you do in life other than make sure that if something really bad happens to you, other people don't have to suffer the same fate? That if you can't speak up for yourself, you're going to make sure that other people can speak their truths no matter what. Um, so, that is the most significant thing that I will have ever done, and so far have ever done. Hopefully, there'll be more, but we're not stopping. We're not stopping until everybody has the same rights as sexual misconduct survivors to be able to share their stories and tell their truth. So, if you've been racially discriminated against, or age discrimination, or gender, or anything else, we're not going to stop until we make sure you have your rights too.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking about the mug that I have today, and it says fearless. And the thing is that, we don't have to be fearless, and that to be fearless isn't the requirement to be able to move forward. We can have fears, and yet it doesn't have to be that our fears can be paralyzing for us. And this applies to women on so many different levels, Julie, from women who are trying to start out in a new career, take on a challenge, start an extraordinary movement that gets bipartisan support and is enacted into law. That fearless isn't the requirement, and you can still forge forward and be acknowledging of your fears.
Oh, it's really scary. I just want people to know that. I mean, it sounds like we're going out there kind of fearlessly fighting the fight, but the truth of the matter is you do wake up at 3 in the morning terrified. I mean, especially for those of us who have trouble sleeping in the first place, which I know a lot of people do. You know, you kind of fall asleep, and then in the back of your mind starts working, and you wake up and everything's kind of discombobulated. And that's really for me when the fears came for many years and still do sometimes. I'm thinking I'm really blowing it. I mean, if I'd kept my mouth shut about Phil Murphy, for instance, I could have continued to make a lot of money. And it cost me financially a great deal. And I was a single mom at the time, so it's really scary. All of those things are things that I don't take lightly. And there are a lot of women out there who are in the same position that I was in who can't speak up because their financial situation won't allow them to risk their career for this, or because they don't have the megaphone that Gretchen and I had because we were on national television, or because they don't have the political contacts to be able to get their story out in the media the way that we had. I mean, all of that, I'm very conscious of it. And I think somebody asked, any advice for somebody who's still bound by an NDA in their jurisdiction. Uh, my only advice is I don't know your personal story, and it's a very, very, very unique decision for everybody. For some people, a lot of people, it makes sense. I mean, I remember a woman coming up to me at Fox. So what happened was I sued Fox, but I still had my contract, so I still had to go in there every day, which you can imagine was really tough. It was very awkward. And I remember a woman who, a very high profile anchor, who, if people here watch Fox, would probably recognize, passing me a note saying, "You're not alone." Another woman who'd recognize, kind of seeing me in the elevator, looking around to see if there were cameras looking at us, because there were cameras everywhere, kind of whispering under her breath, "I had the same story. I wish I could do what you did, but I need this job to support my family." And I completely get it. I completely get it. And so the answer for every individual person is, it's really what you feel you can do. Don't look at my story and say it might work for you, it might not. If you want to reach out to me, please do. I will always talk to anybody who wants to talk about their story. It's always going to be confidential. But the truth of the matter is, these are really difficult subjects, and they're very unique to every single person. And I want to acknowledge that.
I think it's so important that you're really clear that you're saying, this is what I did. And what you're also saying is, and you don't have to do the same thing that I did. And it's so important that we really understand and give credence and acceptance and support for women, for people who aren't in the same kinds of positions.
Yeah. And so, if anything I say inspires you to take action, I'm so glad. If anything I say sounds to you like this is something you'd like to do, but you can't because of your own unique circumstances, that's okay too. Don't lose a moment's sleep feeling guilty about it, or that you're compromising yourself or your values in some way. It is such a unique decision for every single person. For me, I felt better after I spoke up, after I came forward. That's what psychologically, and I think you're a therapist, you'd understand that psychologically, I needed to do that. And by the way, my NDA was so onerous with Governor Murphy that I couldn't talk to a therapist about what was going on. I couldn't talk to a priest or a rabbi. I couldn't talk to my mother. I couldn't talk to my husband. I couldn't talk to anybody. At that point, I wasn't married, but to anybody. And, you know, for me, it was like, well, oh my God, if I, like, this is going to eat me up inside, because it's almost like, we're taught to see something, say something, we're taught to get things off our chest. But yet I would stay up all night ruminating about what was happening to me. And I couldn't talk to anybody about it because I was being threatened with lawsuits all the time for nothing more than trying to stand up for other women. and 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 so, that's what I needed to make myself feel better. But there are people who just can't do that because it makes them feel worse to go through something so public. And by the way, I had the kitchen sink thrown at me publicly. It's not like you're going to speak up against a really powerful man and then have that person just sit back and take it. um it was really tough. It was really tough. And I just want people to go into this with their eyes wide open. If it works for you, I'm so glad, and I'll be standing right behind you. And so will so many other women. You'll have an army of women standing right behind you. But if it doesn't work for you, we get it. We get it. It's a totally personal decision.
And in that, you had your personal way that you were committed to, heart and soul, to have impact. And there are many ways to have impact. And you found the way, for all sorts of reasons that you probably never would have imagined, ever in your entire life.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
look, I for a very, very long time, I was on the board of something called the Women's Campaign School at Yale, which is exactly what it sounds like, a women's campaign school up at Yale University, that does training for women who want to run for office. It's nonpartisan. People from all over the world come. It's just to try to get women into running for office. And every single year that I would give a talk there, somebody would stand up, and they felt they were in their sisterhood of women. It was all women in the room, so they felt courageous enough to say, I was mistreated by some politician, or I was harassed, or somebody spoke to me like I was an idiot because I'm a woman. All the stuff that I'm sure everybody here can relate to in any field that they're in, right? And inevitably, this person would start crying. And I would stand there kind of mentally rolling my eyes and thinking, there's no crying in politics. Like, suck it up, just suck it up. And the advice that I would give these women for literally decades was keep your mouth shut, just persevere. We've all been there, but the way through is the way through, right? The way to get ahead is just to persevere and push it through, and don't make any ruffle any feathers and just go. And it was the worst advice that I could have given people. I mean, it was such bad advice that I really feel like I need to find every woman I ever gave that piece of advice to for decades and apologize to them, because it's just awful to tell women to just suck it up, right? Nothing ever changes if you just suck it up. You don't hold people accountable if you just suck it up. And so, you know, we've all made really dumb decisions and bad decisions in our own lives too. It's not like, I woke up one day saying I'm going to, I've always felt this way and I'm going to, make the world a better place. I think it's a question of, you know, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore. All of that had bubbled up within me for decades and decades and decades and decades. But as a very young woman said to me, I was able to do this because I had established myself enough professionally where if I said it, it would be taken
Yeah.
seriously. That's not the case for 22-year-olds, and that's a problem too.
Well, you've really put out very, very clearly that this was your path. This is your commitment. There are many ways to contribute. And that also, I think that one of the things that is important to note is that it's not necessarily men against women or women against men, that we find the spaces where we have allies and support and we can work together and we're there for humanity. uh, and you know that your life unfolded in this way, and it's how what happens in life, and how we rise and to meet it. Those are our moments.
Yep, for sure. And it really is how you meet it. And it really is about where you project yourself being, for me, it's when I'm on my deathbed, am I going to be proud of all the people I've helped to elect? No. Am I going to be proud of all the interviews I did on television? No. Is it nice to have had those experiences? Yes. I'm not going to pretend it's not. But what am I going to be proud of? I'm going to be proud of hopefully raising a good human being in my son. um, and then I'm going to be very proud of making sure that I contributed something to the world that made it a little better than I was leaving behind. Then it, and that's for me. That's what matters. It doesn't mean that that's what matters for other people, and that's okay too. I don't mean to sound like Pollyannish about this, but I really mean it. Everybody's got their own path, and they really do. And it really matters what your path is and how you want to take it.
Exactly. And no one is you. You are
No one's
you are your unique soul, your unique entity on this earth. And what you have, what you bring, how you think, what your life has looked like, how you've shaped it internally for yourself and with yourself. That is the sovereignty of the self that you carry with you wherever you go. I knew this would happen. We're just about out of our time together. Julie, you mentioned it to me, but I would love for
sure.
you to let everyone. What is your
Uh,
disruption?
so my next disruption is we just yesterday launched a TV show on YouTube called Over It. You could go to my YouTube channel called Salty Politics and see there. You can, it is with three other women. One is Tara, I'm going to name them in case people know them because they're kind of high profile. Tara Setmayer, Michelle Kinney, and a woman named JoJo from Jers, who, if you are in social media, I guarantee you've probably run across her. And we are here to talk about stuff every Wednesday at noon, and not just political stuff, although we do a lot of talking about that too, but just about life. Like, for example, yesterday we did a segment about why I hate Valentine's Day, but I love Galentine's Day. And so it's not just, it doesn't matter what your political persuasion is. It's not just politics. It is about life. And we feel like women don't have enough space to do that. There's a live chat so people participate. We are doing a coffee and conversation live chat on YouTube as well this Saturday at 10 for anybody who wants to participate. And that literally means you go into the chat. We will address your questions and comments. And it's just a great way to build a community, especially these days when people are feeling a little unsettled. Just build a community of like-minded people who won't get judged for what they say, no matter how they say it or what they say. So I think somebody here also asked how they can get in touch with me. If you follow me on Instagram, I have to warn you, I'm not on it much, but please, if you follow me, DM me and I will, it may not be immediate, but I will respond, I promise. So that's how you can get in touch with me.
From Julie, a promise is a promise. And
Promise.
a promise is a promise. I know that for sure. And for for everyone here on Valentine's Day, there's just one more note I'd like to say before Julie and I take our cover shot, which is that that no matter what your situation is, no matter whether you're in relationships, not, just know that when you're with you, you are not alone. Being with you is not being alone. You have yourself, you have value, and you find something in yourself that you care about, you connect to, that gives you pleasure and joy. Keep looking. Even if you can't figure it out now, find something. I promise you that it's there. So thanks so much, Julie. I am, our timing couldn't have been better. Thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your heart, soul, passion, purpose, and persistence that you're also letting us know will carry through in the future. So let's take our cover shot. And for those of you, if anyone's missed this, anyone needs to hear it, it's going to be on my Instagram. It'll be on in some form on Julie's Instagram. So don't worry, let people know who missed it that they haven't missed their opportunity. So let's take our cover shot. You
Yep.
ready? I think you're fine. I don't think you've got a hair flip to do. I think you're just
Okay.
and one more, since women like options. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. See you next time on Disruptive Conversations. Remember, positive change can happen at any point in time. You're never too late. See you next week. And remember that I've saved a seat for you. Thanks.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.